tell us about reframing our stories. And maybe specifically one entry I really loved in your devotional is called Spring is for Real. I don't know if you remember that one, but
Yeah.
spring is for real. It touched me very deeply. What does it mean that spring is for real? And how does that reframe our story in God's perspective?
I love that question, Stephanie, because the whole book really is about reframing your story and telling yourself a better story. Because again, if I could just even tie together the things that you say set off a physiological and neurological and chemical reaction in your body. And this isn't about name it, claim it, but it really is about coming into agreement with the word of God and the heart of God for you. Otherwise, you're dealing on a faulty platform. And so, okay, spring is for real. I live in Minnesota. I literally hate winter. I mean, I forgive me, Lord, but I cannot stand winter. Oh, cold is hard on my body. I would say I feel like where I'm at health wise, I honestly feel like if they did a blood panel on me, there would be no Lyme in my body. I've come so far, but I do have a few residual secondary impacts. But cold is excruciating on my body. So about 15 years ago, Kev got me an infrared sauna just to manage pain in the winter. But in Minnesota, winter can be 8 months long. I feel like God allowed us to be born here. Our families are here. We got a good life here, except for this wretched season. Sometimes it's 40 below and the icy snow blows so hard. I'm like, it's like curse words blowing on my face. You know, this is how dramatic I get in the winter. My hubby's like, you're allowed one complaint a week during the winter. But I honestly, and you go weeks sometimes without seeing the sun. So it is a struggle for me. I'll just be honest. So people who live in the cold, upper, Northwest know what I'm talking about. If you're not a winter person, I thrive in the sun. I thrive in 90-degree humid heat. It's when I come most alive. All that to say, in this particular entry, forgive me if I've complained too much, but it's
Oh,
a
I
thing.
hear you. My husband is the same way. My husband is from North Africa. He just needs sunshine. We live in
Oh,
Pennsylvania,
yeah.
and Pennsylvania sunshine
Oh,
isn't enough
yes.
for him. So I hear you. I hear
Thank
you.
you. Thank you. And again, it's another area God has to deal with in me, right? But however, so in that particular entry, it was many, many years ago, and I've been in a really tough patch with the health issues. I mean, it was a bad stretch, and it was costing us financially. And oh my goodness, it was tough. And I realized there had been multiple spring, summers, and falls, which I love those seasons, that had come and gone without my realizing them. And so I kind of like was in this winter season going, it seems like it's been years since I have felt the warmth of the sun, really in my soul and physically. And the Lord was whispering me and inviting me to hope. And I want to say it was in March, but it was like a 60-degree day, which was almost unheard of, but they do happen. But I could hear the birds. People were opening their windows and birds were singing. And I saw some, we would sometimes have 8-foot mounds of snow at the end of our driveway. They'd start to melt a little bit. And I saw some tulips push up around a tree. And I'm like, could it be? And could this be a visual sign that for us, the season is really changing in our lives? And kids were out playing basketball. None of them were wearing their winter jackets. And they were just, and people were walking and waving on the street. And I'm like, oh, wow. And hope came alive within me. And then the next day, it was back to that brutal cold. I mean, side winds that were just, and it was freezing, and it was a violent, angry winter snowstorm. And I just fell into the ditch. And I'm like, that spring day was a lie. This is what my life is. And it was a long stretch of hardship. And there's times in that place where God did seem silent. And so, and my friends were enjoying the best times of their lives, taking vacations, building additions, had money, had health, had wealth. And the contrast was so stark that it was like, I was doing what you did, Steph. I was like, is there anything in me that's, out of obedience? Is there anything in me? Is there a reason for this, Lord? And I could not, it was crickets. So I was at a loss. And when I spoke that out, saying that spring day was a lie, the Lord thundered in my spirit. And you'll have to read it in the book because it was so precious. He said, no, he says, this winter day is a lie. That spring day is the truth. Spring is coming. This winter season is ending literally, and it is ending for you spiritually. I'm ushering you into a new season. You have got to believe I have got new things for you. And he so thundered in my spirit. I was charged to hope, faith, to love again. And it was so beautiful to me. And it was like spring is for real. Winters don't last forever. After you've suffered a while, God himself will come and rescue you and strengthen you and set your feet on a solid path. That is true. And I know you and I have walked with God long enough to know That is true. He keeps his promises. You know, even in Psalm 23, we walk through the valley of the shadow. We don't camp there. We don't live there. And we, unless you decide to be like the Israelites and surrender to your circumstances rather than surrendering to God in your circumstances, we're always only passing through. Seasons come and seasons go, but the name of the Lord will be praised.